at the beginning. And so I wanted, especially since I'm going to be introducing Celeste here, I wanted to say through the process of doing in the issue, we have a featured poet section in which we include some of the featured poets' poems, and we do an interview and a review of their most recent work. And in the process of interviewing Celeste, I got to hear a little bit more of the intimate details of how Cantamundo came about, as well as we did an interview on Writing on the Air, which was a lot of fun last week, or was that this week? That was this Wednesday. Yeah. But yeah, and we were talking about, if you haven't ever seen or read the essay by Juno Diaz, it's called MFA versus POC, in which he talks about how the traditional MFA program is not always friendly to people of color. Half the workshop is spent explaining one's identity or ethnicity or culture instead of talking about poetry, craft, and aesthetics. And if not just explaining one's identity and culture and ethnicity, it's defending it and why race might matter, or why race might be an issue, or why race might be something that should be looked at in poetry. And Celeste, when talking with her, both in the interview and on the show, we got to talk about her personal experience with going to workshops and people spending lots of money to go to these places, and people wanting to talk about what it means to be Tejano, or defending what it means to be Tejano or Tejana, instead of the poems. And how creating a space like Cantamundo, which is like a master workshop for Latina and Latino poets, that part of it, that explaining, that defending one's ethnicity, doesn't have to happen because you're in a community of people like you, which is very similar to organizations like Kabe Kana, which is for African American poets, or Kundimen, which is for Asian American poets. And so creating a space like that where you can share your work and your culture, your language, we talked about code meshing, or your ability to switch between different texts and languages, without having to feel like you needed to translate that experience or that language. It's not only a gift, it's a necessity. And so it's not only something that we in the Austin community should be thankful for, because we've been able to enjoy a lot of their readings and things. And in fact, Irene Laura Silva is going to be reading here later tonight. I think it's 6, is one of a great alumnus or alumna of the program. And so it's also been something that, if you look at a lot of these books being published by Latin American poets or Latino or Latina poets, a lot of them have, it says in their byline, Cantamundo Fellow. A lot of great awards, like the Yale Younger Writers Award, to just about anything you can think of have been won by these poets. And I think it doesn't only speak to the sense of community that's built there, but the great work that's being done there, and the great poetry coming out of that scene, and the fire they've been able to create. And a lot of this has been done through the passion of Celeste and her co-founders. And you'll see when you see her personality up here. It's infectious. And so, and how, like, even when we were at UT at the reading, and you're yelling, doing the Cantamundo chant, and everybody gets into it, and even though they've never experienced Cantamundo before, they just get to feel a small bit of what it's like to be in that sense of family. And it's great how that is able to be conjured up like that. So Celeste was our featured poet. We got to talk about her book, Beneath the Halo, but she's also working on a second manuscript I'm excited to see, and a lot of the poems in here come from that, right? All of them do. And so hopefully that'll be coming out. Beneath the Halo is from Wing Press, 2013. The second book, Coming in Waves, is what we're talking about right now. It's in search for a publisher. She's a co-director and co-founder of Cantamundo, a workshop for Latino poets. Her poetry and essays have been published in numerous anthologies, literary journals, and magazines such as Poet Lore, Borderlands, Salamander, 5 a.m., Rio Grande Valley Woman, and San Antonio Current. A graduate of the Bennington Writers Seminars with an MFA in poetry. She currently is working on her PhD in higher education administration at UT. She's married to Michael Mendoza, and they live in Austin with their 2 cats and 4 fish, which is very important. So please welcome Celeste.
A book. I'm going to read a poem from this chapbook that Wings Press did. It's called Ganda Te Estoy Llamando, and it was published in 1998, not too long ago. I'm turning 40 in 2 weeks, and on the 10th, May 10th, and I'm very excited. Is there anybody else here over 40? Is anybody over 40? Raise your hands high, raise your hands high. Is there anybody over 40? Yeah, so I mean, I'm loving this because I feel like now that it's like the fuck few 40s, I don't know, so I'm feeling really like empowered. And it was interesting looking back at this chapbook of poetry that I wrote in my 20s. A lot of this book is about a search for identity and who am I? And so there's a lot of poems about family that are in this book. This first full-length manuscript, Beneath the Halos, in 4 sections. And the reason why I'm telling you about this is because I'm going to read through these 2 without introductions in between the poems. But this manuscript is really written in 4 different sections. And in contrast to it being, kind of a meditation on identity like this one, it's much more of a meditation on the 4 sections. And at the time when I was working on this, it just happened to be what I was writing a lot about. One of them was family, like this one. Land, God, and marriage were the other parts of the book. So I'll start with these 2, and then I'll take a pause and tell you a little bit about the 2 poems that are in Borderlands. La vecina. The woman next door está tocando la guitarra, cantando la canción de amor, sabor a mí. Her gatos are sleeping on her porch, their tails swaying back and forth in their slumber. Her kettle cries an ee into dusk while the wind sucks las plantas against las postas. 1 sas, 2 sas, 3 sas, 4 sas, and she strokes la guitarra. Con cada palabra piensa en su hijo, who left in greens and returned in dust. Mija, who left with the ring, returned wrung out. The man who drank Bud Light, the bedpost, the sweat, the crooked tooth that used to be there. Isas, 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 no más sabor a mí, on the sole of her plastic chanclas, the molcajete of her palm. Y la canción fills her cotton house dress as the air fills a dropping parachute, till I can't tell if she's falling or floating with that canción de amor. Y la veo entre las postas, y la oigo entre los suspiros, y espero el minuto cuando se va a volar sobre la melodía de la canción, la que ahora no tiene ni palabra ni ritmo, no más silencio del aire y del suspiro. La vecina, que nunca falta de canciones, the next door to the me, who hides close to her porch, waiting for the next canción, waiting to join her gritos and llantos, till I can almost taste el sabor de amor that her plants and the wind talk about. Crooked Pinky. Lisa jutted her hand up to my face. I'm a Rodriguez too. Got grandma's pinkies. All us Rodriguez women are crooked little finger ladies. We're buried with beaded rosaries wrapped snugly around our clasped palms, crucifixes dangling below the crook in our pinkies. Lisa feels connected to us. She is, and isn't. Half Canadian, so she's a pale-skinned, blue-eyed, dirty blonde, and didn't grow up eating tacos. At 22, she can't hold one without the stuffing dangling or falling out. But the pinky is her proof that she is from this line of hard, dark-skinned Mexican women, rock candy ladies that take espinas from nopales with our teeth when a knife isn't handy. We are known for starting fights with other women. And even our husbands could, but never would, confess to receiving a cracked bone or two from a Rodriguez woman's clenched fist. The crochet doilies we make are coasters for our beer. We knit for our husbands so they'll know our hands are agile with sharp objects. Lisa doesn't know this history, can't name our abuela's hand cream, doesn't know Tia's secret handshake, but she has the crooked pinky every Rodriguez woman carries as we live our lives anyway but straight. El Sagrado Corazón. The Sacred Heart of Jesus was tattooed on Roberto Tijerina's sunburned chest. Droplets of blood trickled from Jesus' heart to Roberto's belly button, which filled with lint and dust, especially when he did his contract construction work in his front yard. Roberto's tattoo artist painted Jesus' robes damask, number 234, his hair golden brown, number 26, and his eyes ocean, 57. Jesus' lips spread into a smile when Roberto inhaled, shortened at each exhalation. When sweat formed on Roberto's chest, Jesus' face, neck, robes, and flaming heart became dewy. Sheen over Jesus and the Sagrado Corazón burned like that eternal candle in the church down the street. The fire never went out on Roberto's chest. And when Roberto stood still, stared at you straight without blinking, because you were staring at him without blinking, Jesus was calm, an even stare from between Roberto's brown nipples. La pizca, the picking. Rows of cotton, like lines of braided string. La tierra, strand tras strand tras strand, as far as the eye can see. 1,000 fibers rolled tightly in an orb, a fist volando, flies made of flour rising off their backs. Flat hats shield them from the downpour of rays. Uno, dos, las manos trabajando in pairs. Lips count 47, 48, 49. Rags ripped, knotted around knuckles. Nothing to remember, but to protect. A nick, a gash, centimeters deep. Dirt, dusted off with a sigh. 40, ¿qué? Bag filled with white, weighs the back 55 degrees, 45 degrees, 35 degrees. Breath and incense for the brambles. Fist of sticks, clenching cotton close. How many bolas make a shirt? How many rows today's frijoles, tomorrow's? Llénalos, llénalos. We are so close to finishing the day. Llénalos, llénalos. We are so far away from today. Marriage, hunger. Oil droplets gather around the edges of the chicken strips, fries the meat to a golden brown. Vero's hand flings the chicken over, the pale skin of her face reddening from the smoking oil. 5 hours and 37 minutes ago, she unlocked the restaurant door, turned on the grill's pilot light, and tied Alex's apron around her neck, then waist. She has no papers to prove she is his wife. No papers to show the restaurant is also hers. Half, he'd said 9 months ago over a tecate and a fajita taco. No papers to legitimize their children, a 10 and 5-year-old, one born in the United States, the other in Mexico, one in an odd numbered year, the other in an even. No papers to the house they rent or the car she drives. But Vero doesn't believe in papers or the power of the pen. She wakes up at 5 a.m., washes her face with hand soap, brushes her teeth, then ties her hair back with a rubber band, pulls on one of Alex's old t-shirts, her one good pair of jeans, and the flip-flops she bought from Doña Jovita for 75 cents. By noon, the booths are full of her neighbors wanting salads and enchiladas suizas to go. No time to ask for a signature when the whole world's mouth is open, hungry, and waiting. And that poem, The Marriage Hunger, that last one is from a series that's in the last part of the book about marriage, and it's quite a few poems. That's the word marriage, colon, and then some other word. And it's really, you know, a bit of a meditation on marriage. I think that's something I love very much about poetry is we get to do these very short, some people say the word vignette, meditation, belch, you know, whatever you want to say. But there are these moments, you know, and I think when sometimes people ask me, well, because I write essays or I write plays or I don't write really much fiction. But when they say, well, why does that have to be a poem? Why are you choosing for that to be a poem? And sometimes the answer is, I have no idea, right? And then sometimes the answer is, you know, this particular topic, like this one of the no papers, you know, that to me, we could read scholarly things about it. We could read newspaper articles about it. We read newspaper articles about it, right? We see it on TV. But there's something that a little poem can do that allows your mind the space to think, who's the Beto I know? Who's the Beto I see, right? And that sometimes when we're looking at the TV segments or reading the long newspaper pieces, it engages a different part of our brain so we can distance ourselves, right? But something about poetry puts it right in our face. And that's why for some topics I choose, I want that to be a poem. Because then I can get into somebody's body, I can get into their armpit, or I can get into their neck, or, you know, get into these spaces where we feel what that issue is really about, as opposed to the thinking of it, which just distance us. So, you know, all of us that do this work, that we provide these spaces for poetry, I think that's what we're providing, right? It's a space for people to feel something kinesthetically in their heart, in their body, that we don't always get to do in our everyday life now, especially, you know, when we're on the phone and, you know, toda la cosa. So what I was so excited about when Ryan called me and said, Celeste, would you like to give us 3 poems, besides jumping up and down and hitting my computer, and, you know, my boss, like, why are you yelling? And she's all the way on the other side of the hallway. I was like, let me tell you, you know. Is because this second manuscript, I mentioned, it's one of these magical things that happens that, you know, it's kind of like, I don't know, it's kind of like cotton candy. How the hell does that happen? I don't know, but it's magical. You put it in your mouth and it tastes so good, you know. And I had read this poem at this reading we were at 3 years ago, the Nopal, Florida Nopal Festival. And a colleague of Gloria's and Liliana's and mine and John's, her name is Angela Ratliff, and she actually started a poetry group here many, many years ago. And she said, Celeste, I don't know. And, you know, whenever you're with somebody and they're like, I don't know, you're always like, oh, hell, what's coming next? She's like, I don't know, that poem to me, it seems longer. There's something in there that's like you want to break out. And so with Gloria's guidance, I applied for a Hedgebrook residency, and Hedgebrook is a writer's residency for women writers. It's not just poets, it's any type of women writer, and I invite every woman, and also photographers and artists, so I invite any woman who's ever wanted to go away for 2 weeks and get fed very well to do it, because it's very supportive atmosphere. You're around other women, you have your own cabin, there's a beach nearby. And I decided to take this poem with me to work on it, to see what was. I had no idea what I was gonna do. I was on the plane over there and I had no idea what I was gonna do. And for the very few that know me, I usually know exactly what I'm gonna do. I structure my days because, you know, to get stuff done very, very routinely. I got on the shuttle that took us to the ferry, and I still didn't know what I was gonna do. I got on the ferry and I didn't know what I was gonna do. I got on the second shuttle that was gonna take us to the bus stop where we were gonna get picked up. I had no idea what I was gonna do, and I started having obviously a lot of anxiety about, you know, I'm gonna be here for 2 weeks. What am I gonna do? ¿Qué voy a hacer? I'm gonna go crazy thinking about what I'm gonna do. And on the drive to the property, I heard the beach calling to me. And I've not really ever been a beach person, you know, but then all of a sudden it was like, it's in voices was what I heard. And so the next morning when I woke up at 7 in the morning, I started writing these voices. They came out in 3 voices. It's a father, a mother, and a daughter. It's a story that's based on some of my own story, but also on the story of others. And it is a book-length poem, and what was published here, I ain't gonna read you the whole book, so don't worry about that, because you'll be here for a while. But I sent in the beginning of the book, and it's always good to hear the book as you're kind of finishing it. It is finished, and that in search of a publisher is right. I'm sending it out and seeing where it'll hit and if it'll find a home. But the book is about forgiveness, and it's about how we come together. You're put together many times in these units called a family, and what we experience. Sometimes you could smell everything. BO, urine, gasoline, even sulfur from a gunfight a couple of 100 meters away. That night, I smelled tobacco, but not mine. Another. One I came to know later was what their soldiers crushed by hand, then scattered into paper, rolled tightly, passed around amongst themselves. A spice I can't name, bitter. And there among the trees, bushes, ground cover, it was all jungle. I saw a faint slit of a cigarette. Had my weapon pointed that way. Knew he had his pointed mine. He saw me just light up. If there was him, there may be more. Maybe. Unless he was a deserter. But you rarely found those on their side. At least we had not really. I could not see his eyes, but could make out his flat nose as he inhaled. Why was he smoking? He could see the outline of my body against the barrels, though we were covered beneath a canopy of tree limbs, and I was crouched low. I had not killed one yet, so I was ready, but hoping he would leave. It was Sunday. I'd made a promise, no killing on Sundays. But I heard the metal cocking and it was automatic. I brought my M16 up and aimed an inch above where the slit was and fired. It was fast. I did not breathe. Don't think. That sound I would hear again. The dead weight hitting that lush carpet called the jungle. I did not move. Scanned the dark for slits, glints of metal, breathing, BO, anything that said Viet Cong in my head. But I was alone again. The stars shining over me. The moon silent, waning. I had not even taken my cigarette out of my mouth. I inhaled, exhaled a steady stream of smoke. Why was it so easy for me? Thank you.